When night falls, they come into their own. Astrophotographers portray the night sky in spectacular images. With their cameras, they show celestial phenomena in a way never seen before. On voyages of adventure over 5 continents, Bernd is bound for Scandinavia in search of Europe's darkest night sky. He needs landscapes of total darkness without the glare of human civilization to let him see into the depths of the universe. Cologne in winter, just before nightfall. Astrophotographer Bernd uses the rare opportunity of a particularly clear sky to go stargazing. It's close to freezing. Bernd prepares for some time-lapse photography, aiming to take a photo with a very long exposure every 10 or 20 seconds, with the result that more details of the night sky become visible. When played back, the sequence allows us to watch the movement of the cosmos. In cities like Cologne, the abundance of lights means that the stars are hard to see. Maybe 50, 100 at most. In remote, unlit desert regions, there would be thousands. Only there, far away from built-up areas, is it possible to view the less luminous celestial bodies. In a city, you can hardly see the Milky Way.
It's hard to believe, but in rural areas, where there's also snow on the ground, the Milky Way is so bright you can even see your own shadow.
Streetlights, traffic, illuminated billboards, light pollution deprives modern man of something that our ancestors took for granted: the nightly view into the cosmos.
Nowadays, half the people in Europe and the USA live in regions where you can no longer see the Milky Way.
To get good shots of the night sky, Bernd heads for Norway, where he hopes to find Europe's darkest night sky. In the north of Norway, it's not just dark. Now, at the end of winter, it's still very cold, as much as 20 degrees below zero. Which means you have to be very well prepared and have just the right equipment.
Ultimately, it's about showing that our existence in the here and now, here in Cologne, surrounded by cars, is a very earthly perspective. But we live in a huge, immeasurable, ancient cosmos, and we forget that in our everyday lives.
By leaving the loud, bright city and leaving human civilization behind, he hopes to find total darkness and an undimmed view into the depths of the universe. The first stop on his journey is Mile at the extreme tip of Denmark.
I've now covered the first 1,000 kilometers and have reached the northernmost tip of Denmark. Located here is the largest drifting sand dune in northern Europe. For astronomic landscape photography, this is very interesting because we're surrounded by sea here, the North Sea and the Baltic. And in the North Sea and the Baltic, there are obviously scarcely any sources of artificial light. This means the night sky is really dark, while the dunes provide a very light backdrop that at night also reflects the light of the moon and stars. And there's a nice contrast in the landscape, which is why areas with sand dunes are always very interesting in my work.
The incessant wind here means the voracious dune has been slowly shifting for centuries from the North Sea coast to the Baltic, burying everything in its wake: shrubs, trees, streets, houses. 250 years ago, the sand devoured the region's largest church. Over and over, the parishioners tried to shovel the sand away from the entrance, but finally had to give up and pull down the nave. Now all that remains is the whitewashed spire, a landmark for navigators.
It's very interesting to see how the dune eats into the trees. Maybe I'll find a location where the moonlight will cast the shadow of the trees onto the dunes. That would be ideal, but I'll have to see if I can find a good location.
This is the challenge, to find the perfect camera position. Under no circumstances does Bernd want footprints in the picture, not even his own. He even hides his camera tripod behind a tree trunk so it won't cast an irksome shadow in the moonlight.
So, I would say we can get going.
Even though the sun is already below the horizon, refractions of light are still visible for another few minutes thanks to the curvature of the Earth. We have to wait another 45 minutes before the so-called civil twilight comes to an end and night begins. But it still isn't dark enough for astronomers. It is only once the sun has disappeared 18 degrees below the horizon that astrophotographers can get to work, when all the stars come out. Bernd exposes each photo for 15 seconds, 3 pictures a minute. When these images are played back at speed later on, it will be possible to see the movement of the stars. The long shadows of the moon also loom across the picture.
Tonight we have a full moon over the dunes. Obviously this is an advantage, as this gives you lots of light over the landscape. But a full moon also means the stars aren't as visible, since weaker stars don't come out in full moonlight. So you have to find the best possible compromise. But we do have very clear air at the moment thanks to the north wind, so we might still be able to see nice stars in the picture.
After taking numerous shots throughout the night, he heads off the next morning, continuing his journey through Sweden to Norway. From Rabiekmile in northern Denmark, he takes the ferry via Frederikshavn to Gothenburg. His search for the darkest night sky in Europe then takes him through Sweden and across the Norwegian border to Zølen, Røros and Hessdalen. In Norway, the landscape looks considerably more wintry.
The road starts to climb. This is a big advantage because everything I can take uphill by car, I don't have to drag up there on the polka. So it's going great so far. The polka is a low, boat-shaped toboggan that Bernd can use to carry everything he needs for his shots, as well as more warm clothing, since it gets extremely cold here at night. It's now 1:30 and it's starting to snow. But that's not a cause for concern yet. It's just a little cold front passing through. After these cold fronts, it often clears up, which is what I'm gambling on tonight.
For good time-lapse shots of stars, it is important to find a position above the tree line. One that offers the best chance for a clear view of the Zulen Massif under the night sky.
This is more or less how I imagined it. It does look very good. Now we just need slightly better weather. The conditions aren't really suited to astro shots yet. Like this, we can't see any stars. But I'm still optimistic because it looks like things are slowly clearing in the west. And if things go well, we should be able to see the arc of the Milky Way over the mountains around midnight, all bathed in moonlight. That would be my ideal, but we do still need to blow away the clouds a little.
Lo and behold, the cloud cover lifts. He now needs to act quickly. The light is developing perfectly and Bernd wants to start shooting at dusk. But the equipment isn't ready yet. Amongst other things, he needs another lens warmer to stop the optics fogging over in the cold.
I'll be damned, what awesome light.
Minus 12 degrees.
But I'm still not taking any photos yet. I still haven't taken any photos. My hands are so frozen I can't work the camera. An old time-lapse rule says when you're done, tighten all the nuts again. After all, it has to hold for 15 hours. And here we already have it, the first loose nut. Okay, things can get going at last. The camera's running. Hopefully for the next 15 hours.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
On my trips, I search for solitude, so obviously I'm alone. But I enjoy it. Solitude is actually a means to an end. The aim is to get shots without any disturbance from light sources. As soon as you have people nearby, you also have disturbing sources of light, which is why I often come to Norway on my own. Sometimes a bit of company would be nice, but you can also enjoy the silence. It sounds strange, but silence in Norway is quieter than silence in Germany. You have to realize, since our beginnings, mankind has always looked at the stars in the night sky. We have always found something very fascinating there, which has given us food for thought. The night sky has prompted mankind to ask questions about ourselves, our own existence, and the existence of the world.
Back in his cabin at the campsite, the astrophotographer looks through last night's results.
An amazing sky. I'm standing here for a brief moment in the mist, and then it clears again. This looks very, very good. Oh, a fog bow. I've got a fog bow. That's really great. A rare natural phenomenon, right here in front of me.
A bit further north, we find members of the Sami community. The Sami, also known as Lapps, are considered the indigenous population of Scandinavia. Since time immemorial, they have driven their reindeer herds through the landscape, which was originally uninhabited wilderness. But when the first settlers arrived and set up their farms here, things got harder for the Sami, because the farmers were less enthusiastic about the reindeer grazing on their fields. Bernd is meeting Magne, who gets reindeer used to interacting with humans. Later on, the animals will be used to draw sleds. Only ever for a single winter, after which they are released back into the wild. Under the snow, they find their staple food, lichen.
The reason we use this is their natural food in winter. All around here in this area, it's all covered with lichen or moss, reindeer moss. It's called the kvetkrull. So it's tasteless.
Can I taste it?
No.
You can eat it?
Oh. It's not good, but it doesn't taste anything.
I've been hiking here a lot in the last years, but I never knew that it's possible to eat it.
Every year, the male animals shed their horns and big new antlers grow in their place. Magne's reindeers have names. This is the fastest buck in the herd. His name is Lubinastia, literally snow star. For the Sami people, the stars have always had special meaning.
When they moved with the reindeer herds in night, when it was clear sky, you can navigate after the North Star. That I have learned, to know where north is, always.
We have our special constellations. Are there also Sami constellations in the night sky?
I have heard the stories about the sky button, which is the North Star. It's a story about the hunt.
The hunt in the sky revolves around a single point, the North Star. On one side, there's a reindeer, and on the other, a hunter with his bow.
The hunt was going on all the night, from when it was dark till it started to be light again in morning. So they were afraid if they did miss the reindeer but hit the North Star, the button, the sky would fall down, and every life would die.
In his goatee, or traditional Sami cabin, Magne raves about his experiences under the Nordic night sky.
When you are sitting far away out in the wilderness, far away from electric lights, and it's complete dark. And you see the moon rises over horizon, and all these diamonds, the stars all over you, and you hear the enjoyable grunts from the reindeers, and that they are having good. And
it's a special mood.
Oh, it's complete silent, black. It's dark, and the stars are sprinkling all over. It's a. No, we had a night like that 3 nights ago. I were out with the herd, and my wife and I and my son. And my wife said, "Wow, it's a sight you can't see that many times in many places in the world anymore."
On his route further north is Røros. According to legend, it was here that a reindeer hit by an arrow and in its death throes scraped the ground with its hooves and uncovered copper ore beneath the Earth's crust. This discovery gave the city its prosperity. For 333 years, people in Røros made their fortune from copper. Today, the mines and smelting works have been shut down, and the former mining town has become a World Cultural Heritage Site. As it happens, all ore deposits anywhere in the world were created by the impact of comets very early in our geological history. This means that the metal objects we use on a daily basis, cars, tools, coins, are all, at least partially, gifts from outer space. Metals in the Earth's crust also play a special role a few miles north of here, in Hesdalen, where Bernd is going to visit his old friend Peder Skogas.
You're doing well?
Peder and the astrophotographer share a special interest. They both have a weakness for the so-called Hesdalen lights, a celestial phenomenon that may have something to do with the metal deposits in the soil. Peder Skogas shows him recent shots of the nocturnal lights that are frequently seen in the vicinity.
We have minerals in the ground here. Sulfur and water. Then we have sulfur acid, we have zinc, we have copper, we have iron.
A lot of ingredients. You can cook a cake or...
or at least he made a natural battery of it.
It's this natural battery theory, yes. Do I get it right that in a small battery we have certain ingredients, and all those ingredients we found in this valley, and so this is a real big natural battery, or...
Maybe.
Okay.
Lots of research, lots of more research.
For decades now, scientists at the universities of Ostfold and Bologna have been using special cameras and magnetometers to study the celestial phenomenon. But there are still no clear photographs of the phenomenon and no accepted scientific explanation.
Did you personally see the light with your own eyes?
Yeah, I saw it last time with some Italian researchers from Vista Point towards the south. Also means at the other side of the valley from here.
And what did you see?
These three lights moved a bit around and got together again.
Wow, this sounds really spectacular.
Yeah, but it's the traditional where it occurs.
What's your personal explanation for the phenomena? Because of course you've been reading all the articles published about these measurements, so we can't explain it completely, but what do you believe?
It must be something, but what is it? So I think that is the question.
Always up for a challenge, Bernd would love to help find an explanation and offers to try to take more shots of the Hesdalen lights. The only problem is his car is of limited use on these roads. Thankfully, his friend Peder knows someone who rents out snowcats, complete with their own driver. As many tourists have had accidents on snowmobiles or got stranded in the ice-cold wilderness, a special license is now obligatory. Destination, a plateau on the edge of Hesdalen, far away from the glare of the town. Out here, there might just be a chance of capturing the rare celestial phenomenon on film. After half an hour's drive, Bernd continues alone on skis, in search of the ideal motif. The area isn't just inhospitable, but also famed for the icy hurricanes that come up from the south, which is exactly where the wind is coming from today. It's likely to be a particularly cold night, but Bernd needs an unobstructed view, so cannot seek the close protection of trees or niches in the rock. Soon, the wind picks up. For one specific shot, Bernd uses a device that turns the camera very slowly in time with the rotation of the Earth.
This thing here has to point towards the North Star. The axis has to be facing exactly north. It's now leaning at 63 degrees, which is our geographic latitude. This means when you look through this axis, it goes straight to the North Star. When I switch it on here, I'm almost in tune with the cosmos, and the world drifts by.
To ensure this happens as convincingly as possible, the camera now stands upside down. The lens looks at the Earth like it would from a space station, giving the impression that the Earth is gliding through space.
When I'm out and about on my own in Norway, I'm not concerned at all at night, as Norway is one of the safest countries on Earth. And in the countryside, you're always safer than in the city. But here, I'm in a very special area that is a bit mythical, and there are crazy stories. That's why I feel a bit uneasy for once. Have I ever seen a Hesdalen light? I wonder about this myself, because in the nocturnal landscape you can see lots and lots of things. Satellites briefly flashing in the sky, planes with a strange flight path, scooter drivers out and about in places they actually aren't allowed to go. You could say nearly everything you see here is initially unexplainable, but with a bit of thought and research, they can usually be traced back to quite everyday causes. But I do think I saw a very pale Hessdalen light once, as I frequently used to come out here and leave the camera running all night. And when you carefully go through the recordings, you see light phenomena you don't see in recordings taken in other parts of the world. That's a strong indication that they are Hessdalen lights. The Hessdalen phenomenon is often hidden in one of 1,000 frames, so when I play it back in real time, I obviously don't see anything. That's why I'm now going through this time-lapse frame by frame to see if anything unusual appears in the picture. For instance, here you can see a satellite flying past. Every second there is a chance you might capture something spectacular, but the probability is very low, which is why I see normal satellites here the whole time. But there doesn't seem to be anything sensational here. If a pale Hessdalen light did appear, it could happen, though there's only a very slim chance. That would be something really exciting for research. Hessdalen is a nice example of where you can make a contribution even with your own personal research. Where else can you do that today? We have outsourced all the scientific stuff, or the curiosity in the world, to universities. And we no longer marvel at the world ourselves. The Hessdalen phenomenon might not be visible here, but hidden in one frame you can actually see a snow hare, the Norwegian mountain hare. This is actually a real rarity. To get such a sharp picture of a wild animal in an astronomic time-lapse shot, that's really unique. To see the Milky Way, I have to use a 15-second exposure. So this snow hare was totally aware it was posing for the camera and stood still for 15 seconds. I will definitely publish the picture somewhere.
From Hessdalen, the search for a night sky free of intrusive light influences carries on northwards, to the coast, to Trondheim and later to Folsen. With 180,000 inhabitants, Trondheim is Norway's third largest city and located on a large fjord. It is a city with a long trading tradition and a checkered history. Fish, wood, ore and metal products were sent from here throughout Europe. In the 14th century, this rich city at the mouth of the river Nidelva was nearly obliterated by the plague. Astrologists at the time blamed the stars and the position of certain planets, coming up with explanations far removed from the science of astronomy as it is now practiced on the outskirts of the city. Here at the Astronomiske Forening Observatory, Bernd meets colleagues who are experts on infinity and use sophisticated telescopes to cast their gaze on distant galaxies.
So this one you took in the last month?
Yeah. And what you see here is what we call the Heart and Soul Nebula, and it's not very easy to see that it's a nebula. And then we have used a filter that takes only a very narrow portion of the light.
Special lens attachments filter out the different light sources, luminous hydrogen, oxygen, creating a colorful image that speaks volumes about the history of the universe.
So we get now an image that looks like this.
Yeah, just a very beautiful image.
Yeah.
And if you see all the dots in here, the small structures, if you can you magnify it a little bit, Alan? In these areas, there form new stars. So if you come back in about some million years, the gas is gone and it's a lot of stars here instead. So I actually feel that I watch the creation when I watch the stars. When I see a supernova in a distant galaxy go, and I can see that. And then we know that this is actually the process of creating the pieces we are built of.
When I'm in the mountains and there is no light from the town, and you can watch out in the universe, you are aware that you are a very, very small thing. You're a small part of the big universe.
As a child, I obviously asked the infinity question. Mum, how big is the universe? To which I got the unsatisfactory answer, it's endless. But what comes after that? I was obviously preoccupied with the question. And what's fascinating about this is that even as an adult, the answer to this question doesn't come easily. But modern physics has a very simple answer that says, the universe is finite. You just can't imagine the edge because you never come up against a big wall at the end of the universe. Instead, it's abstract. You have to imagine it as curved space. When you run around the world, you never come up against a wall that you bounce off. So if you carry on flying in the same direction at some stage or other, you get back to where you started. This is roughly how modern physics explains the finiteness of the universe. And this is a working notion you can be satisfied with.
In any case, looking into infinity requires total darkness, and we won't find that in Trondheim.
Trondheim is one of the most light-polluted cities in Europe when measured against the size of the population. Here, 180,000 inhabitants produce as much light pollution as the whole of Berlin, which has several million inhabitants. The result is you can only see very few stars with the naked eye. Tonight we have a clear sky, but we can see only 2 stars, Vega and the planet Jupiter. If the sky was really dark, we would be able to see thousands of stars with the naked eye.
So Bernd continues further north, just as the scientists at Astronomische Verening advised. Forsen, a stunning landscape. Twisting fjords, tiny islands and mountains smoothed by the last ice age. The first stop-off is the settlement of Besaca, popular with professional anglers and amateur fishermen alike. Here, Bernd Pröschold wants to take shots of a very special coastal landscape under a canopy of stars, but only if there are no beacons or ships in the night to detract from the cosmos in his composition. The owner of his cabin has hooked him up with a German colleague, André Bayer, who works as a local builder, but spends his free time on astrophotography.
My idea was to drive down this road to the tip, from where I should have a good view towards the north, to the Milky Way and the North Star, with no sign of human settlements anywhere in the picture.
Yes, that's right, but this is a main shipping route, which means you always have to reckon on shipping traffic, especially for your photography. I would choose another viewpoint, a location that's further north beyond the main shipping route. André Bayer has a boat and is happy to take some time out for Bernd's nighttime expedition. The bay beyond Besaca is home to salmon farms and many islands, some of which are uninhabited. The astrophotographers head for Skjærøya Island. Only a few Norwegians live here usually, but now in the pre-season, it's almost empty. They need to find a place where nothing is shining apart from the stars. Bernd sets up the arm support he tried out at home, especially for this motif. The idea is that as the camera gradually gains height, it leaves the view of the beach behind.
Oh. Okay. Now the arm is running, the head is running. I'll switch on the camera, which will take a picture every 20 seconds.
Alle 20 Sekunden ein Bild.
On a rocky outcrop, Bernd notices a pool of water and has another idea. A second camera could film the starry night sky reflected in the pool, stars whose light has taken many hundreds of years to reach us.
When you first look at the stars, it's fascinating to realize that you are looking into the past. A star like Deneb in the constellation of Cygnus is about 1,600 light years away. So we're looking at it exactly as it was in the year 400 AD. This means the starry sky, without any need for metaphors, really is a time machine. So we can look back into the past. And this is obviously a very fascinating notion.
The next morning, snow is on the ground again. Bernd is fairly satisfied with the shots he has taken so far, but hasn't yet found the perfect conditions. A landscape at night totally devoid of any artificial sources of light. So on he goes, 1,000 kilometers further north, to the Arctic Circle, an area almost entirely uninhabited. From the bay near Besaka, the journey took him via Trondheim by plane to Narvik in the Arctic Circle. From here, he heads across the Swedish border and into the mountains, until he reaches Abisko. Finally, he arrives in Narvik, a port famous throughout Europe. Thanks to the Gulf Stream, the port remains ice-free all year round, allowing Swedish ore to be brought here by train from Kiruna throughout the year, then shipped from here around the world. But Bernd Pröschol's destination is still 40 kilometers away in the mountains. There, near Abisko in Sweden, is Torneträsk, a long frozen lake. Beyond it are mountain regions that are unpopulated and only accessible by helicopter or on skis. But that would take several days. But there's a problem. The weather is forecast to deteriorate dramatically. Strong winds and a drop in temperature are on their way, even if it doesn't look that way at the moment. Which is why Bernd doesn't want to stay up here on his own. The plan is for the pilot to drop him off, wait, and then take him right back down again, so that only the cameras stay up here on their own.
Are there any villages or roads in this area? No. So completely dark in the night? Yes. Okay. On this side is totally forbidden to go with the snowmobile. Yeah. Let's have a closer look. Okay. Do you think it's possible to walk between the two peaks? How many meters is this between the peaks?
2 hours before sunset, they land at a spot on the plateau 1,000 meters up that Bernd pinpointed on the map and selected with the pilot beforehand. Once again, the plan is to set up 2 cameras a few hundred meters apart. One is to face northeast, the other southwest.
So here there's a really fantastic landscape. You could scarcely paint it any more beautifully. But it's very tricky. I can't stay here tonight because the weather is too uncertain. It's hard to know what lighting conditions there will be here at night. I'm not sure how strong the North Star will shine, or how the lights will look tonight. So it's a case of trial and error. I can't find a stable spot for the tripod on rocks. I've already had the tripod fly away with a heavy camera on it. But there has to be a small element of risk.
The legs of the tripod are secured with heavy rocks. The lens heater is attached. Timers are programmed. While the first camera is running, the second has to be set up on the other side of the plateau. But the sun is setting and there's no time to lose. Here too, bits of rock serve to stabilize the tripod in case the storm forecast is right.
Yes, hopefully the camera will still be standing here tomorrow morning.
Leaving the expensive cameras unattended is a difficult decision, but it's a risk worth taking for extraordinary photos. The night has barely fallen and Bernd is restless, cooped up in his room. The sky is beyond his control. Not the usual weather, but magnetic storms, strong solar winds in space are famous for producing the so-called northern lights. The northern lights appear when oxygen or nitrogen high in the atmosphere is ionized and given an electrical charge. Unable to go to his cameras on the mountain, Bernd can only watch the spectacle without recording it.
During an intense display of polar light, things happen in the sky whereby nature seems to have more imagination than the human soul. Then I just look up and forget my cameras. These are rare moments that amount to just a few hours of your life. So it's better if my cameras are already running when something like this is happening.
But are his cameras still running up on the mountain, capturing the northern lights? He'll have to wait and see. The next morning, Bernd hurries to his cameras up on the plateau, following his own tracks from the previous day. Up here, there is no trace of yesterday's storm.
Camera still in place? That's already a good sign. Camera's running? Great.
Ja, die läuft noch, das ist sehr gut. So, dann können wir die beenden. Und Monitor erstmal.
The camera did run, but not properly. The automatic system seems to have failed and chosen the wrong shutter speeds.
Immer wieder 20, 20, 20, 20. Als wenn die Kamera zu doof wäre.
Maybe this one has failed, but there's still a chance I can save something with a lot of work.
There's still hope that the second camera kept working. 400 meters through the deep encrusted snow towards the northeast on the other elevation at the edge of the plateau.
Card full, exactly what it should say. That's already a good sign. Camera's on. That means it's been shooting. Excellent. The polar light is there, as it should be. This camera worked properly. I think I can work with this. Turned out well, so it was definitely worth it.
Hat sich auf jeden Fall gelohnt.
Astronomical time-lapse photography reveals to us what huge cosmic events surround us every night. And this highlights what a small and transient role mankind plays in the universe. And if exactly this notion was conveyed to the viewer when looking at my shots, that would be wonderful.
Dann wäre das natürlich eine tolle Sache.